The old man walked into the alien city slowly, his cane tapping against the stone road. His hair was white, his beard rough, and his back bent from years of battles and age. Yet his eyes were sharp, scanning everything around him like a soldier who never forgot the field. The streets grew quiet as aliens noticed him. Their conversations stopped, and all eyes turned toward the human stranger who walked with the weight of history on his shoulders. Some whispered his name in fear, others in disbelief, but none dared step close. He had once been a captain, a man whose name had shaped the outcome of wars. Many thought he had died long ago, and yet here he was, returning after 15 years. The alien city was alive with light and sound before his arrival. Merchants shouted, guards marched, and children laughed in the crowded streets. But when they saw him, silence spread like fire. He passed banners of alien rulers, symbols of power, and towering buildings made of crystal and metal, but he didn't stop to look at any of them. His steps were slow but steady, as if he knew exactly where he was going. No one understood why he was here. Some muttered that humans were banned from this place. Others remembered old stories of a battle where he saved both humans and aliens, but those were old tales now, forgotten by most. Then it happened. A young alien woman, her hair dark and her skin faintly glowing in the city light, froze when her eyes landed on him. She stood still in the middle of the road, her hands trembling. For a moment, she could not breathe. Her memories pulled her 15 years into the past. She had been a child then, weak and afraid, hiding in the ruins of her village as war raged around her. She remembered the sound of weapons, the roar of machines, and the heavy steps of soldiers. But she also remembered the moment when this very man had appeared, carrying her in his arms through fire and death, his voice steady as he said, "You'll be safe. I'll come back." That voice had never left her mind, and now in front of her stood the same man. Older, weaker, but still unbroken. Her knees gave way before she even realized it. She dropped down on the stone road, her hands pressing against the ground, her head lowered. The crowd gasped. No alien ever bowed to a human, not in this city. Yet she whispered words that made every heart stop. "It's an honor to serve you again, Captain." Her voice shook with emotion, but her eyes were steady, full of loyalty that no time could erase. People around her stared in shock. Who was this girl, and why did she kneel before a human like he was her commander? Why did she call him captain? The old man stopped walking. His cane touched the stone, and for a moment he simply looked at her. His face was unreadable, carved with lines of age and hardship, but his eyes softened when he saw her. He remembered her too. A small child, covered in ash and tears, refusing to let go of his sleeve even when bombs fell. He had promised her safety, but life and war had carried him far away. Seeing her now, grown and strong, was a moment he never thought he would live to witness. Slowly, he reached out his hand, his fingers rough and scarred, and lifted her chin so she would look at him. The city held its breath. Soldiers tightened their grips on weapons, merchants leaned forward, and elders whispered among themselves. Why had she said those words? Was this human still the same captain who once led soldiers into impossible battles? Was he here to start another war, or to finish one that never truly ended? The silence grew heavy, broken only by the sound of the wind brushing through banners above. The alien girl, whose name was Lyra, did not care about the stares. She looked at the man with eyes that shone with both tears and pride. For 15 years, she had carried his promise inside her heart. When others mocked her, when others told her humans were selfish and weak, she held on to the memory of the captain who carried her to safety. And now, as she saw him again, she felt the same warmth she had as a child. To her, he was not just a man. He was her commander, her protector, and the one person who had ever seen her as more than just a helpless child of war. The old man finally spoke, his voice low but strong. "You've grown." Those simple words struck her deeper than any speech could. She bowed her head again, tears sliding down her cheeks, but a smile spread across her face. Around them, the city was no longer silent. Whispers grew louder. Some called him a ghost from the past. Others shouted that he should be arrested. Guards stepped forward uncertainly, waiting for orders. Yet none dared to touch him. His presence was too heavy, too full of history, as if the air itself remembered the battles he fought. He began walking again, and Lyra rose to follow him without hesitation. The crowd parted, unsure whether to fear or respect what they were seeing. An old man who should have been forgotten, and a young alien girl who treated him as her master. Their steps echoed together through the city streets, carrying a story that was about to shake the galaxy once more. Lyra could not stop staring at the old man as he walked through the city. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heart beating like it had when she was a frightened child. 15 years ago, she had been small, her hands thin, her face dirty with ash. She remembered hiding in a broken wall as the night burned with red fire. The air smelled of smoke, and the sound of machines filled the sky. Her people were running, screaming, falling. She had thought she would die there, alone, forgotten in the rubble. But then she had seen him, tall, strong, carrying a weapon in one hand and reaching for her with the other. His voice had been calm, steady, almost gentle in the middle of chaos. He told her not to be afraid, and she had believed him instantly. He had carried her on his back while blasts of energy tore through the air. His steps had been heavy, but they never slowed. She remembered the way his coat had smelled of dust and oil, the way his voice had repeated, "You'll be safe, I promise. I'll come back." Those words had planted themselves inside her heart and never left. She had been too young to understand war, too small to understand why her people and his fought. But she had known one thing. This human captain had saved her life, not because he had to, but because he chose to. For years, that memory had been her light. The city where she grew up whispered poison about humans. They said humans were selfish, weak, and dangerous. They told her that humans could never be trusted, that they only cared about their own kind. But she remembered the man who shielded her with his own body, who carried her through flames, who left behind his own soldiers just to make sure she survived. How could such a man be weak? How could such a man be selfish? When others mocked her for speaking well of humans, she stayed silent but never gave up her belief. In her heart, she held the memory of him like a sacred treasure. Now she stood before him, no longer a helpless child. Her body was stronger, her blade sharp, her training complete. But when she saw his face, older and covered with lines of age, she felt like that child again, looking up at a giant who carried the world on his shoulders. Her eyes burned with tears she could not stop, but her spine remained straight. She bowed to him not as a child begging for protection, but as a warrior choosing her commander. "It's an honor to serve you again, Captain," she had whispered, and she meant every word. The old man did not speak right away. He simply looked at her, and she could almost see the years in his gaze. Did he remember her? Did he remember that night, that burning village, that small girl who had refused to let go of his hand? Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as she waited for any sign, any word. Then he had spoken softly, "You've grown." Just 2 words, but they broke the dam inside her. She felt a sob rise in her throat, though she forced it down, not wanting to look weak. She smiled through her tears, feeling warmth spread in her chest. He remembered. The people around them did not understand. To them, this man was a ghost of old wars, a figure who should have stayed buried in the past. Some muttered that he had come to stir trouble, to reopen wounds that had barely healed. But to Lyra, he was the promise kept. For 15 years she had waited, certain that one day he would return. Others laughed at her, called her foolish, told her she dreamed of things that would never happen. But here he was, in flesh and blood, standing tall despite his age, and looking at her with the same steady eyes she remembered from that terrible night. Memories rushed back faster now, clearer than they had in years. She remembered him fighting with soldiers larger than himself, his blades striking with skill and fury. She remembered him covering her with his cloak when the cold night wind blew over the battlefield. She remembered his smile, faint but reassuring, when she had cried herself to sleep in his arms. He had treated her not like a burden, but like someone worth saving, someone worth protecting. That single act had changed her life. Without him, she would have been bones in the dirt. With him, she had grown into someone stronger. Someone who could now stand at his side rather than hide behind him. The city's guards shifted nervously, unsure what to do. Their eyes darted between Lyra kneeling and the humans standing still as stone. No one dared touch him, not when an alien of their own kind showed such loyalty. Whispers carried across the square. Why does she bow to him? What is their bond? Was he truly her captain? The questions spread like fire, but Lyra did not hear them. Her focus was only on him. The world could collapse, but she would not look away. This was the man who had given her life when no one else would. For 15 years she had waited, hoping she would see him again. For 15 years she had trained her body and mind, becoming strong enough to one day repay the debt she owed. And now fate had brought him back, aged but unbroken, carrying secrets in his silence. She felt a fire inside her chest, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. Whatever reason had brought him here, she would not let him walk it alone. He had saved her once. Now it was her turn. The old captain did not speak much as he moved through the alien city. His cane tapped against the stones, his steps slow but filled with purpose. Lyra followed closely behind him, her eyes sharp and watchful. She could feel something heavy around him. Not just the weight of age, but the weight of secrets. Every glance, every silence, every pause in his step carried a story he wasn't telling. She had known him once as a fearless leader, but now there was a shadow in his eyes. Something was eating him from inside, and she needed to know what it was. That night, when the streets had grown quiet and the city lights dimmed, she found her chance. The old man sat in a small room inside a crumbling inn, the kind of place no one important ever visited. His cane rested against the wall, and he was staring out the window at the stars, lost in thought. Lyra entered silently, but he knew she was there without turning his head. He always knew. She closed the door behind her and stood with her hands clenched at her sides. "You came back after 15 years, she said softly, "but you carry no joy, no relief. You look like a man running from ghosts. What truth are you hiding, Captain?" The old man finally turned his head. His face was carved with deep lines, but his eyes were the same ones she remembered, sharp, steady, and impossible to lie to. For a moment he stayed silent, as if weighing whether she deserved to know. Lyra took a step closer, her voice firm. "I swore myself to you today before all of them. Don't make me swear to a shadow. Tell me the truth." His lips tightened. He looked back to the stars, and when he spoke, his voice was low, almost like a whisper. "The war is not over. They only changed the battlefield." Lyra frowned, her heart sinking. "What do you mean?" The captain's hand shook slightly as he reached into his coat. From a hidden pocket, he pulled out a small device, no larger than his palm. It glowed faintly with red light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra's breath caught. Even without touching it, she could feel the danger radiating from it. "What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. His eyes locked onto hers. "An ancient weapon," he said. "One that should have stayed buried forever. It was lost after the old wars, hidden so that neither humans nor aliens could ever use it again. But someone has found it, and now it has been awakened." Lyra's blood ran cold. She had heard legends of such things, weapons not made by humans or her people, but by civilizations long gone, powerful enough to wipe out cities with a single strike. "Who has it?" she asked quickly. "The Council," the old man answered. His words were heavy, carrying both anger and sorrow. "They tell their people it is a shield, a way to keep the galaxy safe, but I have seen their plans. They want to turn it against Earth. They want to finish what they started years ago." Lyra stepped back, her heart pounding. The Council were her leaders, her rulers, the voices she had grown up obeying. To think they would dare such a thing. It twisted everything she thought she knew. But when she looked at the old man, she knew he was not lying. He had no reason to lie to her. His eyes carried the truth, and it burned more than any lie could. She gritted her teeth. "Why you? Why are you the one carrying this?" "Because I was there when it was buried," he said. His hand closed tightly around the device. "Because I was the one who swore it would never be found again. And because I am the only one left who knows how to stop it." The weight of his words filled the room like iron. Lyra felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to stand tall. Her mind spun with fear and questions. The man who had once saved her life was now carrying a secret that could decide the fate of the galaxy. She saw the pain in his face, the tiredness in his shoulders. He was old, far too old to carry such a burden, but he carried it anyway. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of the device. Lyra finally spoke, her voice fierce. "Then we stopped them together." The captain looked at her, his eyes narrowing. "You don't understand. If the Council knows you are with me, you will be branded a traitor. They will hunt you, your family, your bloodline. This is not your fight. Lyra stepped forward until she stood directly in front of him. Her eyes blazed with determination. 15 years ago, you carried me through fire when you could have left me behind. You gave me life when I had none. Do you think I would stand aside now when you are the one carrying the fire? If the council comes for me, let them. I will stand in their way. The old man studied her for a long time. In her eyes, he saw the same fire he had once seen in his soldiers, the fire that had carried them through impossible battles. For the first time in years, he felt something more than pain and weariness. He felt hope. He nodded slowly, slipping the device back into his coat. Very well, he said. But understand, Lyra, the path ahead will not forgive us. Once we begin, there is no turning back. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile, even as her heart raced. I have waited 15 years for you to return. Do you think I would turn back now? The old captain leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a brief moment. In the silence, the stars outside seemed to burn brighter. The secret was no longer his alone. The burden was shared. But the danger had also doubled. Somewhere in the city, the council's spies already moved in the shadows, watching, waiting, ready to strike. And both of them knew that the true storm had only just begun. Lyra could not sleep that night. The weight of the truth sat heavy on her chest, pressing her deeper into the shadows of the small room she shared with the old captain. She had always believed the council stood as guardians of her people, protectors of the city, the law that kept order. But now, knowing they planned to use an ancient weapon against Earth, she felt her trust shatter like glass. Every word the captain spoke echoed in her mind. He carried the burden of stopping it, and he was willing to give his life for it. She clenched her fists, her heart burning with anger and fear. No matter what the council said should not betray him. Not after everything he had done for her. The captain sat across the room, leaning back against the wall, his eyes closed. He looked calm, but she knew he was awake. He always was. He had the air of someone who could rest without ever truly sleeping. A soldier who could never let his guard down. His cane rested at his side, his coat hung on a chair, but even without his weapons, there was a quiet strength about him. He was old, yes, his body slower, but his presence filled the space like a general before a battle. Lyra finally spoke, her voice cutting through the silence. Captain. His eyes opened slowly, the sharpness in them instantly focused on her. She stood tall, her hand pressed to her chest in the sign of her people's oath. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice stayed steady. If the council moves against you, I will stand in their way. I swear it. My life, my blade, my loyalty, all of it belongs to you. The old man studied her, his expression unreadable. The faint flicker of lamplight revealed the scars on his face, reminders of battles that no one remembered now. His lips curved slightly, but it was not a smile, more a shadow of sorrow. You don't know what you're saying, he murmured, but Lyra stepped closer, her eyes blazing. I know. You saved me once. That debt is not forgotten. I would have been ash, bones in the dirt, if not for you. My life since then belongs to your promise. If you fight, I fight. If they call me traitor, then let me be a traitor. I will not abandon you. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The captain's tired eyes softened as he looked at her. In her fire, he saw something he had not seen in years. Not obedience, not fear, but loyalty freely chosen. It stirred something deep in him, a memory of soldiers who had once stood at his side, men and women who had trusted him with their lives. He had thought those days gone forever. Yet here she was, one who had been a child when he last fought, now standing as a warrior ready to carry his burden. Finally, he gave a small nod. Very well, he said. His voice carried both warning and respect. But understand this oath will make enemies of your own blood. The council will not forgive betrayal. Lyra's jaw tightened. Then let them hate me. I will not stand with liars and murderers. My place is with you. The captain's chest rose with a long, slow breath. His hand moved to rest on the cane beside him, fingers tracing the worn wood. For years he had walked alone, bearing the weight of secrets that could not be spoken. But now he was no longer alone. Perhaps the road ahead was still dark, but at least there was a spark of light beside him. Outside, the city was stirring. Though night still hung in the air, whispers of movement could be heard. Council guards were not blind. Word of an alien girl kneeling before a human captain had spread quickly. By morning, Everyone in power would know. Assassins would be sent. Spies would follow. And they would not stop until both of them were silenced. Lyra sensed it too. She moved closer to the window, peering out at the empty street. Shadows shifted unnaturally, too precise to be the wind. She turned back to him. "They already know," she said. He nodded once, his eyes narrowing. "Then we have little time." Her hand tightened on the hilt of her blade. Fear pricked at her chest, but she pushed it aside. For years, she had dreamed of the day she could repay him. Now that the chance had come, she would not falter. She would stand between him and anyone who tried to harm him. He had saved her with his strength when she was small. Now she would save him with hers. The captain rose slowly to his feet, leaning on his cane. Even with his bent back and weary frame, he seemed taller, stronger, like the man she remembered in her childhood. He looked at her, and for the first time since he returned, there was something like trust in his eyes. "Then come, Lyra. If you are bound to me, you will walk the same road I walk, and that road is war." Her chest tightened, but she nodded without hesitation. Her oath had been given, and she would not take it back. No matter what came, no matter who turned against her, she would follow him. She did not realize then how heavy that promise would become. The city outside was not just watching, it was closing in. The council would not allow betrayal, and by swearing herself to him, she had marked her name on their list of enemies. But as she looked at the old man, her captain, she felt no regret. Even as the sound of footsteps echoed faintly in the distance, even as danger grew closer, she stood tall. She had made her choice, and she would not turn back. The night was not silent for long. By the time the moon slipped behind the clouds, the council had already sent its hunters. The old captain and Lyra left the inn through a back alley, moving quickly but carefully, their steps muffled in the shadows. The city above them was alive with search patrols, armored guards carrying bright lamps, their boots striking the stone with heavy rhythm. Voices shouted orders in the distance, echoing off the walls. The council wasted no time. They wanted the captain captured before word spread further. Lyra led the way through narrow passageways only locals knew. Her body moved with the confidence of someone who had grown up in the city's underbelly. The smell of smoke, oil, and damp stone filled the air as they slipped into the lower levels, where thieves, beggars, and mercenaries made their homes. This part of the city did not welcome outsiders, but neither did it care about council laws. Here, only survival mattered. The captain kept pace behind her, slower than he once had been, but his sharp eyes scanned every corner. His hand often rested near the hidden device in his coat, as if feeling its faint red pulse. He said nothing, but Lyra could sense his thoughts were heavy, calculating, always planning 2 steps ahead. She admired that about him. Even with enemies closing in, he never looked afraid. They passed under broken bridges and old tunnels, the flicker of fires lighting groups of shady figures. Men and women watched them from the shadows, whispering to each other, measuring whether the strangers were prey or danger. Lyra's hand stayed near her blade, and the old man's presence, calm but commanding, warned others not to step too close. For now, they were left alone, but the eyes that followed them promised trouble. Soon, a sound broke the uneasy silence. Boots striking stone, many of them, closing in. Lyra's heart leapt. The council's soldiers had tracked them into the underworld. Their torches burned bright as they spread out, blocking the exits. Lyra and the captain stopped in an open space surrounded by ruined walls and collapsed beams. Shadows flickered across their faces as the soldiers closed the circle. "Give him to us," one of the guards shouted, his voice rough with authority. "The council demands the traitor." His eyes flicked to Lyra. "And you, your oath will cost you your life. Step aside, girl, and we may yet spare you." Lyra's blood boiled. She pulled her blade from its sheath, the steel catching the light. "If you want him," she shouted back, her voice fierce and steady, "you will have to step over me first." The soldiers laughed coldly, but they hesitated. There was something about the fire in her eyes, something about the way she stood close to the old man, as if his strength flowed into her. The captain, leaning on his cane, spoke quietly, his words carrying more weight than a battle cry. "You should walk away," he told them. "You don't know what you're trying to unleash." But the soldiers were bound by orders. With a roar, they charged. The fight exploded in an instant. Lyra moved like lightning, her blade flashing in arcs of silver as she met the first wave. She ducked low, slashed upward, and spun, her strikes fast and precise. She fought not with wild fury, but with sharp control. Every movement aimed to protect the man behind her. The captain did not stand idle. Though his age slowed him, his mind was sharp. He pointed out openings, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. Left flank. Shield high. Now strike low. His words guided her like they once guided armies. The underworld echoed with steel and shouts. Sparks flew as blades clashed, shadows danced in the firelight, and the smell of blood mixed with smoke. One soldier fell, then another. Lyra's chest heaved with effort, but she refused to let a single enemy reach the captain. The ground grew slick underfoot, yet she stood firm, her body moving with the grace of a warrior born in fire. At last, the remaining soldiers hesitated. Their numbers were cut, their confidence shaken. None of them wanted to admit it, but fear rippled through them. They had expected an easy capture, an old man, a young woman. Instead, they faced a pair bound by loyalty, sharper than any blade. The captain's voice broke the silence. "Tell your masters," he said coldly. "If they want me, they must come themselves." The soldiers exchanged looks. Then, slowly, they began to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. The circle opened, leaving only the crackle of fire and the heavy sound of Lyra's breathing. She wiped her blade clean, her hands shaking, though not from fear. She turned to the old man, her chest rising and falling. "I will not let them take you," she whispered. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "You fought well, better than most I've commanded." His voice was low, almost proud, though his eyes carried sorrow. He knew this was only the beginning. They moved deeper into the tunnel, slipping into darker paths where no council soldier dared follow. The air grew colder, the walls wet with dripping water. Lyra guided him through the maze until they reached a hidden cavern lit by faint crystals. It was quiet here, safe for a moment. She finally let herself sink to her knees, exhaustion washing over her. The captain sat beside her, leaning his cane against the stone wall. His breath came heavy, but his gaze stayed sharp. "This city is no longer ours," he said. "The council will not stop. They will send more, stronger, faster. They will hunt us until one of us falls." Lyra looked at him, sweat on her brow, blood on her hands. But her eyes held no fear. "Then let them come," she said firmly. "They will not find me weak. They will not take you while I breathe." The old man closed his eyes briefly, hearing in her voice the echo of soldiers long gone. He had once thought himself alone, carrying a secret too heavy for one man. But now he knew. He was not alone anymore. The girl he saved had become the warrior who saved him. Yet far above, in the shining halls of the council, their enemies already gathered. Assassins sharpened their blades, and generals drew new maps of pursuit. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. They found shelter in the ruins of an old human ship, half buried beneath layers of sand and stone at the edge of the city. The hull was broken, its metal rusted and scarred by old battles, but inside there were still pieces of the past. Faded banners, shattered consoles, and long-dead lights that flickered weakly when touched. For the old captain, it was like walking into a graveyard of memories. This had once been his ship, the vessel that carried him and his crew across countless battles. Now it was nothing but a skeleton, forgotten by history, hidden in silence. Lyra followed him closely, her hand brushing against the walls as if she could feel the echoes of the lives that once moved here. She looked at him and saw how his shoulders straightened, how his steps grew heavier. He was not only facing the ghosts of war, but the truth of why he had returned. He walked deeper into the ship, through narrow corridors and broken doors, until they reached a chamber sealed long ago. With slow, deliberate movements, he pressed his hand against an old panel. The lock groaned, sparks burst, and the door slid open, revealing a dark room filled with dust and silence. In the center was a console, cracked and dim, yet still alive with faint blue light. The captain stepped forward, his hand hovering over the controls. "This is what they want," he said softly, his voice carrying both pride and sorrow. "This console holds the codes. With it, the weapon can be silenced forever, but to use it requires a sacrifice. A life must fuel the system. Without it, the codes are worthless." Lyra froze, staring at him in shock. "A life?" she whispered. He nodded slowly. "When the weapon was first sealed, I linked my life force to the system. My energy, my blood. Only I can unlock it, and only by giving myself to it fully. That is why I came back, to end this, once and for all. Her chest tightened painfully, her throat burning. She stepped forward, her voice trembling with anger. No, I won't let you. You think after all these years I waited for you just to see you die? You saved me, Captain. You gave me a life, and now you want to throw away yours? He looked at her, his eyes calm but firm. Lyra, this burden is mine. I swore an oath long before you were born. If I do not stop it, Earth will burn, and so will your people. Millions will die. I cannot let that happen. She shook her head fiercely, her hands tightening into fists. Then let me take your place. If a life is needed, take mine. I have less to give. The galaxy won't even notice if I'm gone. But you're the only reason I even survived. Don't ask me to stand here and watch you sacrifice yourself. I won't do it. The old captain stepped closer, his rough hand resting on her shoulder. His touch was steady, warm, filled with the weight of a father and a commander. You're wrong, he said softly. You are worth more than you know. You were a frightened child once, but now you are strong, braver than most soldiers I led. You have a future, Lyra. You carry hope. I carry only memories. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She pushed his hand away and stepped in front of the console. If you try, I'll do it myself, she said firmly. I'll give my life. You'll have no choice. For the first time, the old man's voice rose, sharp and commanding. No! His cane struck the ground, echoing through the chamber. I will not let you waste yourself. Do you think I saved you just to see you die for me? Your life is not a debt to be thrown away. It is a gift. Live it. The force of his words struck her like a blade, and for a moment she could not move. She had never heard him speak with such anger. But beneath the anger, she heard something else. Fear, not fear of death, but fear of losing her. The air grew heavy in the silence that followed. The console hummed faintly, waiting, its lights pulsing as if sensing the choice before them. Outside, the city was restless. The council was preparing, sharpening its claws, ready to unleash the weapon. Time was running out. Lyra's chest rose and fell quickly. She turned to face him again, her voice breaking. Why must it always be you? Why must you always carry the pain alone? His eyes softened, filled with something like sorrow and pride mixed together. Because that is what it means to lead, to bear what others cannot, to make the choice no one else dares to make. She dropped to her knees, her hands pressed against the cold metal floor. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks, falling silently. Then let me stand beside you, she whispered. If I cannot take your place, at least let me face it with you. The captain knelt beside her, his hand lifting her chin so she would meet his gaze. His voice was gentler now. You already have. Every step you've taken, every blade you've lifted, it has all been beside me. That is enough. The room felt like the heart of the galaxy itself, silent, heavy, and waiting. The codes lay before them, a path that could save millions, but demanded blood in return. And though the choice seemed clear to the captain, to Lyra it was unbearable. She would not let him go without a fight, even if her fight was against fate itself. Far away, deep in the council's halls, the weapon stirred. Its hum carried through the city like a heartbeat of doom. Soon the sky would blaze with its power. Soon the galaxy would be forced to bow. And in the dark chamber of the ruined ship, two figures stood at the edge of sacrifice, one ready to give his life, the other ready to stop him at any cost. The ground shook as the weapon came alive, its power rising like a storm. The sky outside burned with unnatural light, clouds torn apart by streams of energy that twisted through the air. The people of the city looked up in terror, their voices rising in cries as the council prepared to strike. The ancient machine had awakened, its hum louder than thunder, its pulse shaking the bones of all who heard it. The council's plan was simple: use the weapon to destroy Earth, and with it, end the last threat to their rule. Inside the ruined ship, the old captain stood before the glowing console, his cane cast aside. His body trembled, but his eyes burned with the same fire that had once led armies. He placed his hands on the controls, the light reflecting across the scars on his face. His breath came slow, steady, as though he had already accepted what must be done. This is the end, he said softly, though not to himself, but to her. Lyra's heart pounded painfully in her chest. She stepped forward quickly, grabbing his arm. No, don't do this. There has to be another way. There has to. Her voice cracked, but her grip was strong. She could feel the heat of the console rising, its demand for life force heavy in the air. The captain looked at her, his tired eyes softening. Lyra, I made this choice long ago. When we buried this weapon, I tied my own life to it. Only I can shut it down. No one else. If I don't, millions will die. Your people, my people, gone. She shook her head fiercely, tears stinging her eyes. Then let them kill me instead. Let me take your place. She moved to step in front of the console, but his hand shot out, gripping her shoulder with surprising strength. His voice rose, sharp as steel. No, you are not meant to die here. I saved you so you would live, not to follow me into the grave. Her body trembled under his grip, but she didn't let go of his arm. Then let me fight beside you. Let me carry this burden with you. His eyes closed for a moment, a faint smile touching his lips. You already have, he whispered. Every choice you've made, every step you've taken, it was enough. He pulled his hand free and placed it on the console. The glow flared, brighter than before, bathing the chamber in white light. Lyra screamed his name, trying to push past him, but the door to the chamber sealed with a heavy clang. She slammed her fists against it, her voice breaking. Please, don't leave me. Don't do this alone. Inside, the old captain stood tall, his back straight as it had once been in his youth. The console pulled at him, threads of light wrapping around his arms, his chest, his face. His body shook with the force of it, but he did not falter. His voice, deep and commanding, echoed through the walls. Lyra, protect them. Protect them all. The codes activated. Energy surged through the ship, shooting into the heart of the weapon. The hum grew louder, then cracked like glass. Across the sky, the weapon's light faltered, shuddered, and collapsed in on itself. The deadly storm died, its fire extinguished. The sky cleared, leaving only silence where doom had been moments before. When the door finally opened, the console was dark. The hum was gone. The captain stood no longer. Only his cane rested against the cold metal floor, the final mark of the man who had carried the weight of worlds. Lyra stepped inside slowly, her legs weak, her eyes wide with shock. The silence was unbearable. She dropped to her knees beside the console, her hands trembling as she touched the cold floor where he had stood. Her tears fell freely now, running down her cheeks and dripping into the dust. Her voice broke into the empty chamber. You promised. You promised you'd come back. And you did. But now you're gone again. Her chest shook with sobs, her blade clattering to the ground beside her. The world outside might have been saved, but in that moment, all she felt was loss. The man who had carried her through fire as a child, the man she had sworn herself to, the man who had been her captain, gone. She pressed her forehead against the floor, her voice barely a whisper. It was an honor to serve you again, Captain. The chamber stayed silent, but in her heart she felt his presence, as if he stood behind her still, watching with the same steady eyes, guiding her even in death. She took a long breath, forcing herself to rise. Her body trembled, but her spine straightened. She picked up his cane and held it close, gripping it like a banner. Outside, the city was alive with confusion. The weapon had failed. The council shouted orders, but their voices were broken with fear. People whispered in the streets, their eyes lifting to the sky that no longer burned. Some shouted in anger, some in relief, but none could deny the truth. The weapon had been silenced. And though most would never know the price, one alien girl carried it in her heart. She walked out of the ruins, the cane in her hand, her eyes red but her gaze steady. The people stared at her as she passed. Some whispered her name, others bowed their heads. They didn't know the full story, but they knew enough. She had stood with the human, and the human had saved them all. The night air was cold, but she did not shiver. She looked up at the stars, her voice soft but steady. I will carry your command, Captain. I will protect them, all of them. The stars above shimmered like watchful eyes, and for a moment she felt he was there, smiling faintly, proud. Then the moment was gone, leaving only silence and the long road ahead. She tightened her grip on the cane and walked forward, each step carrying not just her own weight, but his legacy. The old man was gone, but his command lived on, carried by the girl he once saved.